Well, good morning and welcome to today's webinar. This is the latest updates for Church360 members, and I'm calling this our fall 2021 edition or training session because we've had a number of things that we've released over the last few months or weeks, much of it behind the scenes. But we have enough that's in front of you that I wanted to spend some time and show you what's been going on this fall and going into the fall and winter as well. My name is Peter Frank. Let me get my slides updating. Here we go. There we are. I apologize. My camera and the way I've got it set in my office makes my face rather dark. So that's what I actually look like. I am the digital product owner here at Concordia Technology Solutions. One of my responsibilities is to oversee and work with our development team for Church360 members. It's a partnership here between a number of different groups, including our software support and our design team, with our developers and marketing and sales and all that. So we all work together. So I collaborate with a number of people. But I love doing these webinars, and I haven't done one in a while. So I volunteered to take the lead today and show you what we've been releasing and some of the updates to the software. Now, some of you may remember me from past webinars, and it's been a long time since I've led one of these. That's because I've now moved into a part-time position here. So I'm not here as much as I used to be. In fact, I'm only here 2 days a week and for a total of 10 hours. I'm now a full-time student at Concordia Seminary with the intention of going into full-time ministry in a few years as a congregational pastor. So I'm slowly on my way out, but I've worked with our CTS team since 2012. And it's one of my favorite parts of what I do here. And so that's why I volunteered to lead today. But I wanted to put that out there because often after the webinars, I'll get some questions that'll come to me. And if you ask me these questions today, I probably won't get back to you until next week. And if you've sent me any emails and you've gotten slow responses, that's why. I'm focused on studies most of the week. But when I'm here for a few hours on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm totally focused on what we're doing here. All right, enough about me. A few housekeeping items to get going. First off, I'm planning about 25 minutes for this presentation. I'm notorious for going over, so if I do, I'm sorry. I do plan to leave at least 5 minutes at the end, but I don't have anywhere to be right at 11:30. We're in the central time zone, so if you've got too many questions, I'll stick around and answer them for a little while. We are going to be recording this webinar. That's our #1 question, and so I try to answer that as many times during the presentation so that you don't have to ask that during the Q&A. We'll be recording this. It'll be posted in our resource center sometime within the next 48 hours or so. It will not be me doing that, so I can't guarantee the timing, but one of my teammates will be taking care of that, and they'll be sending an email out on my behalf, so you'll probably be getting that very soon. Now, we have a good group here. Wow, we're pushing 100 at this point, so we've got everybody muted because I can't have too much background noise, otherwise it won't help at all. So everybody is muted, but that doesn't mean I don't want your participation. So please ask questions throughout. We've got our chat there. You can put them up. They will go up on the screen. In fact, somebody just posted that they don't have any sound. I'm guessing everybody else is working, everyone else's sound is working because we've only got one person who said that. So hopefully she'll be able to get that figured out. But if you have questions, put them throughout. We'll get them answered at some point, either during this presentation or me or somebody else will email you later on. All right, so that's the housekeeping items. Anytime I lead a webinar, I make some assumptions about people. And I want you to know these assumptions so you know if I don't say something, this is why. I am assuming you have experience using Church360 members. This is not an overview webinar. This is not a detailed training webinar on all the features or how to use it. This is an updates webinar where I'm going to show you some of the latest and greatest things that we've added based on customer feedback. And so because this is based off of customer feedback, it's assuming that the people who asked this know what they needed. So I'm going to be working off of that baseline assumption. I'm also assuming you have full access to all of these features, the role of administrator. If you are not the administrator, that doesn't mean you're not going to get anything out of this webinar. It just means you may have to ask the administrator to do some of these things, especially today, because we're going to be looking at a lot of different settings and permission levels. So if you don't have permission to that section, you won't be able to go in and do this right now. But you'll know that it exists, and you can talk to the administrator to make sure that if you need that access, they can help you get that. So those are the two assumptions that I have today, and that'll kind of help as we get into it. All right, our outline for today. I'm going to talk a little bit about our current overall update strategy. We've got a number of things going on, and I want to kind of lay out what's going on so that you can know why we made some of the decisions that we did. We're going to then go through the new account setting page, custom fields, calendars, grades, and then I'll talk a little bit about where we're going next as we're focusing on things. And then finally, we'll get into question and answers. So it seems like a lot for 25 minutes, and maybe it is. We'll see how it goes. I know I tend to talk a little quickly, so if I am going too fast, just put a note in that says, slow down. But I'm going to do my best to make sure that even if I talk quickly, it's a clear presentation. All right, so let's start off. Our overall update strategy. This has been going on for a little while, and I'll kind of lay the groundwork. Church360 has been around since 2010 when we first released it. We had some major updates in 2012 when I got involved, kind of a relaunch. We had a lot of learning in those first 2 years, and so we made some changes in 2012 and relaunched it under the name Church360 Members. Before it was just Church360. And then I think it was around 2016 where we did a redesign of the whole application. May have been even earlier than that. But we changed the interface, and that's what it's been for a while. And that's really where most of our customers are just comfortable with it. What we have found is that through the years, through some periods of rapid development, we've added some inconsistencies throughout the application where we've made some improvements on one screen, but we didn't go back and film in on others. So right now we're going through a multi-year roadmap where we are reviewing all aspects of it. And so that leads us into our strategy here. We have been upgrading the underlying infrastructure of Church360 Members. There are a number of benefits from our developer standpoint where we're using consistent tools throughout it, and so it's going to make ongoing maintenance and improvements a lot easier. We're using some of the latest technology and web applications, which means that it's going to open up some new opportunities for us within development, especially in terms of things within mobile design. We've had a mobile app, we've had some of our views optimized for mobile design, but we're really looking at that from a long-term standpoint of how can each view be good on a mobile device, because that's where people are right now. A lot of things that happen in the church office are not done on a mobile device, and so we haven't had to prioritize that. But I think as technology changes, we're still going to be doing that. So as we are developing and improving the underlying structure, we are then going through and rewriting every single view using this new technology. And so a big part of this first part of our roadmap was completely behind the scenes, and it didn't change anything at all. But now it's creeping to the forefront, and you're going to be seeing these different views if you haven't already. We've started out with some more of the admin views because it gives us a good chance to try out some new things, get some feedback, make some changes before we get into some of the major views that you use every single day. So that's what we're going to talk about, is some of these initial ones. I mentioned it already, I'll mention it again though. One of the primary goals is to make sure our user interface is more consistent throughout the application. It's something that you should not have to think about, that as you're going from view to view, everything just makes sense because you've been using it elsewhere. And as we do that, we're going through and adding features within each view. One of the things that we prioritize here is receiving and reviewing customer feedback. We've got systems in place that anytime you send something to me or to somebody else on our team, especially our support team, we go ahead and put it into our feedback. And that is immediately shared with everybody on our team. And so our developers are constantly seeing this feedback coming through. that doesn't mean we can react to it. In fact, we get so much feedback, good, bad, and otherwise, suggestions, ideas, complaints. We put it all in there. We tag it, and we regularly review it to see what comes up at the top. What are people saying? If they're all saying the same thing, we've got to address that. Sometimes we've only got one person who says it, but it's a really good idea, and so we look to where we can add it in the roadmap. So we've got a lot of these features that have been requested by one or many people, and we're trying to see how many of these we can get in a way that makes logical sense and doesn't overwhelm everybody. So that's been our ongoing strategy. This is going to continue on. This is no small project, but it's only going to continue to make things bigger. And you're going to see as we go more and more new features. We're going to be pulling in some things from our other applications. It's going to continue to evolve, but hopefully at a pace that is reasonable for you, reasonable for us, so that we do it in a very smart and deliberate way. All right, let's get into the software. So the first thing that we're going to look at today, there we go. Let me make sure you are seeing my screen. Good. We are on the people view. This should be very familiar to you. And what I'm going to do to start, to make this easier, is I'm going to zoom in. And I like to do this while you're watching so that you can see that yours can be changed. If you have trouble and you say, that font size is too small, just hit the Control button on your keyboard and click plus 1, 2, 3 times, whatever it does to zoom in a little bit. Or if it's too big, you can hit minus. But I like to show that because some people don't know about that. And we'll get that question like, why is the text so small? Well, you probably are just zoomed out too far. So the first thing we're going to do is the least interesting thing in the entire software. It is the accounts setting page. So up in the top here, we'll click on settings and then go down to account settings. This view is something that you touch once or twice maybe and probably don't ever touch again. But this is the first one we did because of that very reason. You can see this view looks a little bit different than it did before. We've got a number of things in terms of visibility. We're looking at this from an accessibility perspective too. You may have noticed our colors changed to have a higher contrast. We've been doing a number of things like that throughout, and we'll continue to improve these views as new things come up. The first thing I want to call your attention to is that this is now where you go to edit your logo. You used to go up here and click on it here in the top left. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not. It's not showing up on my account view, so I'll verbalize everything. That logo up in the top left, you used to be able to click on it and change it. And in fact, in some of our views, like on the people view, you can't do that anymore like you could, even though it's an old view. We've turned that off, so you only can do that here under account settings to change that. Soon we will have it so that that might be a home button. We haven't implemented that yet, but I think that'll be coming up soon. So as you go down here, you'll see this is where you put in your basic information, contact information. This updates our records. It's a good place just for us to know that. I want to draw your attention to the plan information. Sometimes this is hard to find. We've found that before, and we've made some improvements before. We're making it again, where you don't know what plan you're on, and plans are based on member households, and you don't know how many member households you've had. So we've tried to make this as clear as possible so that as you're budgeting for the next year, you have an idea of where you're at and what you need to do if you're trying to clean that up. So here now we say it's 78 out of, and in this case, my plan is unlimited member households. But if you want to see who's included in that, you just click on that link and it'll take you to a filtered view to say, these are the people that are affecting your payment. I know at my church, when we got Church360 members, well, we don't have that many member households. Well, according to our data, we did. And so it was a good chance for us to go and review our data and see, okay, this person hasn't come in a long time, or, oh, I realized I haven't seen them in a while. And so our elders started following up and calling them. So it's a good way to get an accurate number and put your finger on the pulse of your congregation to say who truly is a member of our congregation. So that's in this area here. We've also got the automatic promoting of grades that we'll talk about in a little while, calendar starting the week. And we also added tax information, the federal tax ID down here, which goes into contribution statements. Like I said, this is not an exciting view, but this is some of the information that you kind of set it and forget it. And so we'll add some other things to this as we go. But this was our first redesigned view. So I started off with the most boring so that we could spend the most time on the more exciting things. Let's go to custom fields next. So, oh good, Katie, thank you for letting me know that you can see my mouse. I appreciate that. I'm slowly looking over here at the questions as I go. If you click on that cog, that settings cog button, and go down to custom fields, this has now been completely pulled out. It used to be on our settings page, but it has its own unique view now. In custom fields, I personally love this because it really allows you to contextualize for your ministry. And if I'm learning anything at seminary within my practical cases, it's that there are very few rules where it's, this works for every church, because every church is so unique. It's all about the context. Well, custom fields allows you in your church to determine what is most important to track. Now, custom fields in itself is not a new feature. We've had this for a while, but we've done a number of things to improve how it works. First off, we pulled it out so it's separate and we can do more things when it's on its own page. We've split it out here so you can see that as you go in, you have people fields and household fields. We've added the button here to the right of the label to say add a new custom field. We'll do that in just a moment. I want to show a few other things first. You can see here now we've got these 6 little dots on icon on the left-hand side. That's the universal symbol in web design for drag and drop. So you can now rearrange the order of custom fields. It seems like a small thing, but I can tell you this is going to be really nice because it lets you choose how things show up on the person profile or the household profile. Just a little thing, but we're going to be adding that throughout on all of our different views where it's appropriate to be able to rearrange things. We also label what type of view it is here, and we've had this visibility for a while where you can choose who sees this. We've changed a little bit. Actually, let me just go ahead and just add a new field to start. Here's my new field, the different types. We'll talk about that in a second. We've defaulted it to the administrators only to kind of upgrade our security here to say, all right, if you don't think about it, only the admins can see it because we don't want to accidentally show the wrong information to the wrong people. You can block it for a little while if you don't want anybody to see it. You have your different roles here or just one that says everyone. Everyone can see it. So you get to be really granular. You can add multiple roles in here. That's something that's new. So you can pick and choose who gets to see this information. Let's take a look at the types. We've had text for a while. We've had date and then list. Later on, we added link. So if you want to link to like a social media profile or to a shared file somewhere, now we have person link. And person link is an interesting new thing that we've got plans for to continue to grow. But one thing we wanted, so at my church, we have confirmation prayer partners. Let's put that in there, confirmation prayer partner. What that is that somebody who prays for our confirmation students individually. So each confirmation student has a prayer partner. So we'll put that in here and we'll say confirmation prayer partner. It's a person link. And we're going to just say pastors know about that right now. Now let me do everyone so that we can see that in the example. All right, we'll click save. All right, confirmation prayer partner is a little bit long and I have this zoomed in. If I zoomed out, oops, actually even if I do, I forgot we do have a character limit, but we'll just confirmation prayer partner. There we go. We have a character limit because, and I'll zoom in again, when you go to the people view, and let's go here to, say, Nikki Barnes. Yeah, I'm totally gonna go over time, I apologize. I'll try to speak quickly, but I get so excited about this. You have here, choose confirmation prayer partner. When I click on this, I can edit it and go and click on anybody who's in my database. So we'll say Julie Billings is her prayer partner. Now you have this link to go to Julie's profile. And so you see there, now those two are connected. So you can think about all sorts of practical uses for this. For one, and I think we'll have even more improvements in the future for where it's placed, but if you have a relationship under family that you don't currently can't see, this is all linked together, automatically links, and so we have to keep it in that two-level relationship. But if you've got some sort of relationship that you want to add that's unique to your congregation, you can now do that with a custom field. All right, think about that. If you've got ideas, go ahead and put them in the chat. All right, next up. I see somebody can't see my screen. I think my audience view is showing that, so hopefully everybody else is not having any problems. But Shelly, I apologize for that. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe somewhere something's hiding on your desktop. All right, we're gonna go back to custom fields. I'm gonna add one more that will flow into the next thing I want to show. We'll go ahead and click Add Custom Field. One of those custom fields is the date field. And this has been in there for a while, but I'm going to use First Communion as an example. First Communion is becoming, even within our Lutheran churches, we are the publisher of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, but we work with churches in all sorts of denominations. Depending on your denomination, First Communion may or may not be something you observe. Well, it's not a default thing right now, but we've had a lot of people ask for it. So when you added custom field for First Communion, now you could see that on the profile, but you couldn't see it on calendars. And that was a common question. Whether it's First Communion or some other anniversary calendar, we had our defaults and that was it. Well, let's go over to our calendars page now. Go up to settings and calendars. We have redesigned this page and you'll notice it looks very similar in terms of the appearance. You've got the same kind of setup where you've got the plus boxes next to this. You've got the same sort of features here. I didn't go through all of them. We'll talk about them in a little bit here. But in this calendars view now, you also see what types of calendars they are, including custom fields. We'll talk about that in just a second when we add the First Communion one. You can rearrange the order of calendars, which right now doesn't do a lot throughout. We've got a few places where it updates. There'll be even more later on. But you can change the order that it shows up. You can see the type of calendars. So if you use our church website builder, Church360 Unite, those group calendars show up here as they have before, but it really calls it out now. It tells you whether it's an anniversary or a custom calendar or a pastoral visit, which is a unique type of calendar. But when you go and add a new calendar, we're going to call this First Communion. It could be just a regular custom calendar, or it could be an anniversary calendar, which means the events show up every year. But you have to have that tied to a date somewhere. And that's where we now have First Communion as our custom field. So this anniversary calendar is based off of that custom field. And so just like baptism or confirmation or wedding, this will now be one of your anniversary calendars. Now, one of the questions we had a lot was, well, I don't want it to show up for everybody. I only want it to show up for my members. Well, you can choose now by custom or by anniversary calendar, which people it shows up for. So you can go in here and say, I only want First Communion for members. And I can go ahead, oh, actually, before I save that, let me go over here. The visible to, this is something that is new, where you say this calendar can only be seen by these certain people. And you can go into roles, just like within custom fields. It limits the visibility by role. So maybe you only want First Communion to show up for the pastors. You select that. So we'll click Save. So now this one new custom field has been added as an anniversary calendar for specific people, namely members, and can only be shown for pastors, the users who are pastors. We've made this really granular so you can get exactly what you're looking for. And if you want this to be more general, you can say it shows up for everybody and it's visible for all users, but you can really narrow this down. So we've had that issue before with death, where you only show it death anniversaries if you just have members on here. Well, Members are typically set as living. So maybe you want to show something as people who are, deceased members, people who used to be members when they died. You could create a smart group for that that's different than for baptisms. So you really get to go granular by anniversary calendar. You can choose which people it shows up for, and then also which roles those calendars are for. There's a lot of customization now that you can have on that. So we'll go ahead and just click save. I also wanted to show you over here, you can deactivate calendars by clicking that little eyeball there. And so now we've got 5 hidden calendars. So maybe you had a Bible study going for a while and it was its own specific calendar and you don't have that anymore. You don't want to delete it because you don't want to get rid of that history. So you just go and deactivate it and it'll clean up your list a little bit. So yeah, 2020 Vacation Bible School, Rainforest Explorers. We don't need to see that everywhere because 2020 is long gone. So we'll just deactivate that. It's not gone, it's just hidden. So all of your information is still there, but you've hidden it and you can reveal it just by clicking this button in the lower right-hand corner. So it really helps you get down to a clean list, keep your data integrity, but show only what you want to show. Wow, I'm going quickly and I still feel like I haven't covered everything. If you have questions about this, please let me know. But I'm pretty excited about this because it meets a lot of feedback that we've had over the years. All right, the last one is not as complex as this one, but it addresses a few things. When you go to settings, we're going to go down to grades. And grades has been around for a while, but we've called it Sunday school grade, which is confusing to people because Sunday school nowadays, you have in most churches grades that are combined. And so we wanted to clarify and say, no, this is the grade of the student. If you want to define grade by just your church and Sunday school, go for it. But typically it's going to be just your general school grade. And then you could use it for Sunday school. You could build smart groups off of this. All of that's in place. One of the things we did here, though, is we added on how many students are in each grade so that you can kind of get a good idea. And when you click on it, it takes you to a pre-created temporary smart group that says Sunday school grade. Oh, we still need to change that grade in there. I just realized that, but it'll limit it down to that. It's all tied into that grade. You can still rearrange things. We added a little note on here that says after this, so if somebody goes into the youth group, the next time you automatically update your Sunday school grades, it's going to clear upon promotion. You can tell when that's going to be. You selected to automatically promote grades on August 1st. Now we give you a quick link to go and change it here. So here is your date where you change it. So we've tied that all together, made it more visible, cleaned up the view a little bit. I personally think the view is just brighter and more clear in appearance. We also have it so that you can easily print this view. And we've changed it so it goes directly to your browser printer. And we've added up there the name and the date so it always shows up. So we've tried to make that a little bit more user-friendly. We've got some more improvements to make on that in other views, but at least for this view, this is a pretty quick snapshot of, if you want to print this out and say how many you have in each group, you can. You also can export it out there. So some of these design interfaces where it looks very much the same, the new button is always in the same place. The printing and export as appropriate for the view will be put in that same place, and they're being improved. These are the kind of things that they take time, but it's going to create an overall consistent experience that should be just easy to get up and running with if you're a new user and familiar if you've been using it for years. All right, I'm going to check my list real quick. One thing that I haven't shown yet is we've added some warnings so that when you go to delete something, you get this nice big bold thing that says, are you sure you want to delete this? There are 4 students enrolled in this grade. And it tells you when it can't be undone. We've done that on the other views. I'm not going to show that on each one, but I just want to show you what that looks like so you can see, all right, I can't accidentally do something. And it's very clear what's going to happen if I delete it. So that red button says, yes, delete it. I don't want grade preschool 3 anymore. or well, cancel and keep it. I'm not ready to do that yet. All right, that I think hits all the main points that I wanted to hit. But I'm really curious about your different ideas on how to use this. And I do have a couple other things briefly. So again, I apologize for going over. What's next? That's a question that we often get. What is next on our development? Well, we can't just go and put our whole roadmap out, because on a regular basis, every quarter we review our roadmap and we make changes. But I can tell you the things that we're prioritizing. One of the things that has come up as we've been reviewing this is that CardDAV, our third-party technology that links your contacts to your phones, is very inconsistent. It's not native in all devices, and it has created more problems than good. And so we will be decommissioning that without a replacement at this time until we can find a better replacement. But it's caused a number of problems, a number of support tickets, and so we will be decommissioning that in the near future. And so you'll see a blog post about that coming up soon. I just want to let you know that's not a favorable thing, but it solves some issues our customers have been having, and it's just not working well, and we can't fix it in the way that we'd like. So that's bad news. Good news is we've got funds that we're making similar improvements to, as you've seen today. There's a number of changes coming along with that. That'll be released soon. Like I said, we're still working on that one. And we're digging into roles and logins. So roles ties into permissions. We're going to start and continue to add on to that as we go. So if you've got things that you want to suggest in terms of specific things with roles and logins, like really wish I could have this be more granular. I've got a whole list already, but we're adding to it regularly. I'd love to hear what you think. And I'll share the email with you in a few minutes where you can send those requests. You can put them in here today if you'd like, but you don't have to. You can send them to us at any time. Today is as good as a day as any, though. Then we're digging into smart groups, and there's all sorts of things with smart groups. We're gonna have to roll that one out in stages. And so you'll see some initial changes where the view is updated and the editor is updated, and then we're gonna be adding some different traits and criteria. That's gonna be rolled out over a longer period of time, but there's some pretty cool things coming with that. And then also with tags. Tags is after smart groups, and there's some cool things. Again, we've divided that one up into several different milestones to roll out improvements, because we've got a lot of things we want to improve with that, all based on customer feedback. So that's what we're looking at in the near future, but we're going to be going view by view, making changes, improving it. We'll host these kind of webinars as is appropriate when we have enough to show you. I've said a lot. I've been talking the whole time because this is a monologue today. So I apologize that if I went too quickly, but we did have a number of things to cover. What I'd love to hear now is your questions. If there's something that wasn't clear, let me know. Put it in the chat. I'm going to pull it over on my screen, and I'll pull over the screen so I'm not stretching my neck over, and we'll start answering those now. Actually, while I do that, let me put this up on the screen. Yeah, I forgot I had instructions. Please type any of your questions in the GoToWebinar chat. One of the common questions about the recording, we will be recording this, or we are recording this, and we'll be sharing the recording within 48 hours. And if you are watching this recording, please send questions to support@cts.cph.org. But if you're watching live, you can also send any questions or feedback or ideas to that email. That is where our support team collects them and shares them with the rest of the team. All right, so we had a few questions on there. All right, what are the maximum number of custom fields? That's from Monty. Hi, Monty, how are you doing? It's good to see you on the webinar. It's been a long time since we spoke. There is no maximum anymore. We removed that. That was something that we had done from a usability standpoint for a while, just to make sure it was efficient. A lot of our back-end functionality that we've improved has allowed us to do that. So you don't have a minimum, or sorry, a maximum anymore. So add the custom fields. You will see them show up, and you can reorder them now. So it should make it an overall better experience. I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't mention that in the presentation. Karen is asking, what is the advantage of linking the prayer partners? So let me jump back to my screen. That was just an example that I used, but the main advantage is that you now have links to other people within the profile that you have established. So let me drop this down a little bit, cut down the number. And so here we have confirmation prayer partner. You can see now that Nikki is linked here to confirmation prayer partner. This could be any number of things that you want. For example, it could be elder. We have that. I recommend not using it for elder right now because it's not a drop-down list that you can filter by. So you have to know exactly what the elder is. Whereas, for example, right now, I've done that as a list. And so you've got this advantage where if you click on here, you see the list of elders, elder 1, elder 2, elder 3. Whereas with people, you see everybody. Now that could work if you know exactly who the elders are and you don't have to worry about seeing that defined list. So that's a trade-off one way or the other, just by the nature of it. But I think what's really helpful about this, we'll go Darren Belton as prayer partner, is just that ability to see the name, know that it is a profile in the database, and click on it so that if you need to get that person's contact information, you can. One other thing, like I mentioned before, if there's a family or not even a family relationship that is not in here, you could create that. And so we've had this defined by that primary and secondary relationship, 2 levels. So, and when I mean secondary, I mean a grandparent is connected to a grandchild via the parent. So that's 2 levels. Because those infer relationships, we've kept it at 2 levels right now. When we get to the profile view, we're going to be looking at ways to improve that because we've had a lot of feedback on it, sometimes contradictory feedback that we've got to figure out how to do. But this custom person link now allows you to link to people from a profile, just like with family, but based on your needs and what you want to call it, not based on what we've plugged into the software. So that's why there's some advantage to doing that. And I just use prayer partners as an example. All right, Ruth, you've asked a question, can you pull information from the website into QuickBooks? That is a little bit beyond the scope for today. That's a whole different question, so I'm not going to answer that, but I will have our support team reach out to you on that one. Evelyn saying, as pastor, I'd like to see 360 members be able to track my mileage per pastoral visits. Could that be added? Well, we'll go ahead and put that into feedback. Pastoral visits is an area that we're going to be addressing. And so that's a great suggestion that we'll add, and we'll see if we can address that at that time. Kimberly's asking, is it possible to have last time communed as an option to check to be one of the columns in a person's view when printing attendance? There is a last attended choice, but not a last communed. I can talk to that because if you see here right on this profile view, we've got last communed showing up on the profile, but it's not elsewhere. So right now you can commune in one of 2 ways, or you can mark communion in one of 2 ways on a person, for a person. You can do it on the attendance at an event, or you can do it on a pastoral visit. Well, what we've found is when we've tried to add it into these other views, because the calculations where it's looking at 2 different things, it makes it very slow. So as we are going through and improving our underlying background technology, we're making these efficiencies so that we could do something like that. It is an absolutely legitimate use case that a number of people have asked for. When we tried to add it, we realized that there's some groundwork we had to lay first. And so we're doing that as part of this overarching thing to really improve the speed of pulling this data and getting that information onto the screen. We're just not ready yet. So thank you for suggesting that. I'll put that into feedback so it can be added with the others because it's absolutely valuable. All right. Monty responding on, thanks for the number of custom fields. Great. June is asking, is there a way to select the specific information that prints on the equivalent of the person record? Not right now, but that's one of the things we want to address when we get to the person record, because there is sensitive information. Right now it prints basically what the user can see, but it doesn't print it in the best way. So that's a big task. We've got a number of comments from customers on that. We're going to be addressing it in some way, but we don't have that way figured out yet because we haven't come to this view. But it's definitely on our radar as something to address I just can't tell you specifically how yet because we haven't gone through that full process. But yeah, we're absolutely aware of that, and we will be addressing that in some ways, hopefully in a way that everybody's pleased with, even though I know that's probably impossible, but we will be addressing it. All right, Julie's saying, is it a good idea to even put the church federal ID tax number with all the hacking going on? And what is this number entered in benefit? So that number goes into the contribution statement that goes to the members for purposes of submitting their taxes. So that's why we have it in there. And you're absolutely right, security is always a concern, but we're always working to improve our security too. So if you're uncomfortable putting it in there, you don't have to. It's not a required field. But I know that from the convenience standpoints of contribution statements, it's really helpful. So that's why we have that in there. But you can make that choice at your church and work with your members accordingly. All right, Janet, what was it you said you were taking out or discontinuing due to issues and so many support tickets? That is a thing called CardDAV. And let me pull this up on our screen, our support. Here we go. So CardDAV, which you can find out more in our online help center, which you can access from the little I button. I'll pull that up and show you. CardDAV is completely outside of Church360 members. Yeah, we go here. I think we still have it in there. Maybe we don't. Yeah, it looks like we removed that because we're trying to limit the usage. It's on its way out. It's a way of connecting to our database via your phone. You have to enter your credentials. It's a little bit complicated and it wasn't working. So if you don't know what it is, you are not going to lose anything. If you know what it is, it was a very intentional thing that you had to go and set up and a little bit convoluted and difficult to do. So if you're not familiar with it, there's not going to be any change that you're going to notice. If you are familiar with it, and when we tracked it, there's about 8 or 9 people using it still, not a lot on a regular basis. So we feel like it's pretty safe, but I wanted to make sure people know because there are still a few people who get those updates. So Janet, if you're not aware of it, don't worry about it. You're not going to miss anything. All right, and then Heidi says, what is the best way to mark a member as communed at another church? That's a little bit outside the scope of today's discussion, but I could say right now the best way to do that is with a pastoral visit because it won't affect your attendance at all. It doesn't change anything on that end. You could always add a custom field to say like communed at another church last date. It won't feed into anything else. So that's where I'd suggest pastoral visits. But you've kind of hit on something that we're reviewing because communion has happened and can happen in a number of different ways. We've addressed it in attendance and at a shut-in, but if it happens elsewhere, kids at college is a perfect example of that. You've got a chaplain who's serving a university, and the chaplains who are proactive will let the church know that there's the son or daughter of their congregation communed at the campus church service. That doesn't fit into any of these. And so we're looking at different ways of addressing it, but I think the best way right now is just to mark a pastoral visit and have some sort of note that says at another church. Not an ideal solution, in my opinion, but the best that we've got right now. So I'm not sure what the ideal solution is for that, other than just manually updating a date, but then there's no context. So yeah, I don't know if you've got ideas on how best to do it, where you would expect to see it. And not just Heidi, anybody else, go ahead and put that either in the chat or email our support team and let them know and just say, here's an idea for you based on what we talked about at the webinar. All right. I think that gets me through the questions. I am well over time, so I'm going to wrap up today. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to send them to our support team. You could also send them to my email address. I'll put that back up on the screen, peter.frank@cph.org. Just a reminder, I'm only in the office on Wednesdays and Thursdays this semester. Who knows what it'll be like in the spring. So I won't get back to you right away. That's why I suggest going to our support team. But I always love hearing from people and I always love talking to customers. I'm just not around enough to do it very frequently anymore. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming today. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you use the new features, and if you've got creative ideas, send them to me so that I can use them as examples in future webinars. Otherwise, have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.